Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Controversial Issues, where if we can't tick you off, then you tuned into the wrong show. That was just a joke. Rabbi, welcome back. How are you?
Always a pleasure. I had a student once say that if you start listening to these videos, you're guaranteed to be ticked off.
Right.
So that's it.
Hey, everybody knows, at the end of the day, there's something about the Bible somewhere that is either used to tick you off at some point until you learn different, or is ticking you off now. For some people, for a lot of people, one of the things is animal sacrifice, in the Torah. Maybe that's what we could do in another show now that I think about it. Because you have these people who, they're like, just the thought of an animal dying is like, man, that's really morbid. But today's topic, for sure is, I guess you could say along those lines, as far as severity goes, and that is, I've heard from times past where, I won't give you my opinion, I've heard people say that these big tornadoes and typhoons and earthquakes that kill people, that's the hand of God. And I've seen a lot of people get really mad at statements like that. So people are asking, is this the work of God, this COVID-19? That's where we're headed. So it's all yours. All yours.
Oh, I thought you were gonna keep going. I know you interrupt the first thing I'm going to say, so we'll just start and see where it goes.
Okay.
Everybody knows. If you don't know, you find out now that the Rambam, Maimonides says, in the beginning of the laws of fasting, he says that anybody who looks at a catastrophe in the world, right, we'll call a natural, quote-unquote, disaster. I mean, there's no such thing, but a natural disaster, if they look at it as something natural, they are, not only a heretic, they're cruel. Why? Because everything emanates from God. Now, there's an interesting quote from the prophet Isaiah. Now, the prophet Isaiah says, chapter 45, verse 7, right? He says that God forms light, creates darkness, makes peace, and he creates evil. Right? So now people are going to say that, God is evil. But it's not true. Says the Ramchal, says Moshe Chaim Coffman, in the way of God, he says that he created it from nothing. Just like everything God creates from nothing, if you go to creation, you go to the story of creation, let there be light, there is light, etc. So therefore, it's outside of him. Now, God can, there's a scale. There's a very big scale. In heaven, we don't see it, but the scale is either going up or going down, either for good or for bad. Now, says the Rambam, the way God judges a place, a planet, a city, whatever it is, if there's more goods, everything being equal, everything's good. If there's more bad and God says, okay, that's it, I'm going to take over, so he's going to make something happen. Now, God has mercy. God doesn't necessarily want to whack people, that's for sure. But in the end, if it's deserved, then it will happen. There is no such thing, right, as the Ramchal here says, there is no such thing as something that does not happen measure for measure. Now, the question's going to be, do we actually see it? Do we actually understand it as measure for measure? So you see something like this, right? It's affecting, it's affecting mostly the, older people, but other, younger people also getting hit. So there is no such thing as something that happens in the world where God is not directly responsible, right? So the idea is that we're going to see that whatever happens, there's responsibility for our own actions. There's a general responsibility in the world. And if that equilibrium gets knocked off somehow or gets, it goes on the side, let's say, of sin, okay, God has to wake us up. So how does this work, right? it works in the way that God can do something near you, right? Around you. Different city, different state, different country, whatever. That could be used as a wake-up call. If that doesn't work, right, then God can do something closer by. He could even do something, if that doesn't work, you're supposed to wake up. He could hit you financially. He could hit you in the body, right? He could make you sick. Any physical sickness, right, whatever we get, we understand is caused by something spiritual. But you see something like this is all over, right? So the Christians deal with this, in a very different way. They mistranslate, right? They take this verse and mistranslate it altogether. Why? Because if you say God created evil and he allows these things to happen, right, even though he's in charge, we're not saying God is evil, right? There's a reason, there's a reason behind, what happens. We're not always privy. We're not always privy to why, right? But it is interesting. A lot of people brought out the Medrash. There's a Medrash in Shir HaShirim in Song of Songs, chapter 2, verse 13. And the Medrash says before, very close to when the Messiah is going to come, there's going to be a major plague. Right? So people say, oh, this is the end of days. The Messiah is going to come, right? Etc. Now, me personally, you can take what I say with a grain of salt. I don't see it as a bubonic plague. I don't see it as a swine flu of 1918. Are people going to die? People are going to die. Right? Everyone's stuck now. The world's in lockdown. So be that as it may, there are a lot of things that could happen. Right? But at the end of the day, we have to remember what this is. Right? Essentially, it's a virus. Can it kill somebody? It can kill somebody. Right? Can it kill somebody younger? Much less likely. Statistics show certainly much less. Right? But at the end of the day, when we look at what happens in the world, Amalek, as we saw on Purim, Amalek, the people of Amalek, what did they bring to the world? They brought doubt. They brought doubt to the world. They brought the idea that there is no such thing as a supernatural. And that's how Mr. Haman himself dies. He gets killed because he's stuck. That Esther accuses him of selling out her people. He begs for forgiveness. Angels throw him down. The Talmud tells us, throws him down on her couch, on her bed, etc., and pin him down. And God opens his eyes. He's able to see these angels. Achashverosh comes back after little elves destroy his garden, and he says, "What? You're gonna take my wife right in front of my face?" And what happens? He's pinned down by an angel. He can't say it's supernatural. Don't you see the angels? Everyone's going to laugh because he's Amalek. Amalek does not believe in supernatural. Right? They look at things, everything happens by chance. It's random. So they'll look at this thing, right? And, and people will say, okay, wrong place, wrong time. Your immune system is compromised. You got to stay home. God forbid you get it. It could kill you. Right? That's for sure. Does God want to kill people? He doesn't want to kill people. But at the end of the day, he'll bring things out, he'll change nature, or he'll keep nature as it is, and he'll wipe out cities, right? There was a huge tsunami that, the earthquake at the bottom of the Atlantic, destroyed half of Southeast Asia, put Atlas back on the map, no pun intended. Why? Because that's what he wanted to do, right? He had his reason for wiping out, that area of the world. Why? So I can't tell you. I can tell you that there are things that happen in different parts of the world, right? A lot of quote-unquote catastrophes and things happen, in that part of the world. Now, in that part of the world, you go back to Genesis, where Abraham himself, when he he gives gifts. He gives gifts to the children of Hagar, right? That he has children with. So Rashi asks, what are these gifts? And the gifts are, he gave them shemus. He gave them names of God for them to use, and he sent them to the east. So we understand they went to the Far East, and there's a reason, right? There's a reason that in that area, there's all these different things that go on that go against what God wants. You could ask the $1 million question, why did Abraham give it to them? Okay, right? But at the end of the day, exponentially, you look at where these things happen. I'm not saying there aren't, There aren't hurricanes, in the States. There aren't hurricanes, in other places, and tornadoes or whatever. You just don't want to be in a trailer park because that's the first thing that goes up in a tornado. But the point is that there are things that happen in a lot of things happen in that part of the world. There's a tremendous amount of idolatry, witchcraft, other things, right? Using different names of God or whatever. And even though Abraham gave that to his kids and they passed it down and that's where it is. So you have a lot of turmoil there, right? You have a lot of things, that happen there. So if God wants to reach out and punish people, okay, we don't have prophets today. So there is no warning, right? We don't, you go through the book of Jeremiah, everything's about, God's going to destroy the temple. You have to return. You have to repent, right? You have to be better. No one believed them, right? No one believed them. No one changed, and that was it, right? God destroyed the temple. In this case, again, God has many things he can use, right? He's got many messengers. He can use earthquakes. He can use typhoons. He can use tsunamis. He can use diseases, right? You look at these other diseases, that killed thousands of people. They disappeared. Why didn't they continue? Right? Simply, they didn't continue because God didn't want it to continue. Right? Way things going, the way people talk, this is going to destroy half the world. I definitely don't believe, and again, you can take it with a grain of salt, that this virus, that's what it's going to do. If people get sick from it, most people are healthy and are going to die. Some will, but most won't. Right? Now, if that's the case, eventually it should die out. The only question is how long. So now, they put everyone in lockdown, but make no mistake, right? Make no mistake, every missile has its place. So therefore, when we see what goes on politically, when we see what goes on, in this world, there are a lot of things we don't understand, right? There are a lot of things that we don't fathom at all. And because we don't see the bigger picture. Right, we see tragedy, we see people dying, we see people getting killed, we see famine, we see all kinds of terrible things. So the obvious question: so why does God mete this out? Right, that's going to be the issue. Right, Kushner wrote a book, made him world famous, New York Times bestseller when bad things happen to good people. Right, it's not really the topic, but the conclusion he drew was he had a son tragically died of progeria, right? Progeria is a disease, and an aging disease where you're an 80-year-old in the body of a 10-year-old. It's a horrific thing. No one should ever have it. No one should ever have to go through it, right? And he basically said, I looked into my actions. My wife, we're pretty good people. We try hard, this, that, and my son doesn't deserve this, right? So it must be God doesn't run the world. Right, so obviously that's the wrong conclusion, and that is heresy, right? Heresy 101 over here. But at the end of the day, he's not going to say, right? He's not going to come out and say, well, God did this. Right? Now, the conclusion is from that is if a child's born and they have a disease, right, whatever it is, or they're autistic, or they're special children, whatever it is, that cannot be punishment. Why is it not punishment? They're underage. Person gets punished in this world, he has to be considered a male or a female over the age of 13 or over the age of 12. Punishment comes usually after the age of 20. God still has mercy, right? But when a child's born with that, it's not the child's fault, right? There's something else going on, this whole thing about transmigration of soul and reincarnation. But the conclusion is not, well, stuff happens. Because there are things that happen where a soul comes back and other things go on in this world. Everything's calculated measure for measure. Many, many sources. Many, many sources the Talmud brings out for that. That being the case, so now you have something where the bark is much greater than the bite. Right? Because over here, what do we have? We have panic. We have absolute panic. We have hysteria. We have people buying out all the sanitation things, in toilet paper. Like, everything's going to shut down. You're not going to have toilet paper, right? So, but where does it all stem from? God wants change over here. I don't think there's any question. He's not happy. So he put the entire world, which is uncanny, because even with these other things, it wasn't the entire world. right? Different parts, different aspects, fine. But the fact that the entire world is shut down, one little microbe, right? So when you look at that, this cannot be something by chance. Okay, how it got out, who is at fault doesn't really matter, right? But the fact that the thing is so contagious, everyone's at home. You have to ask, okay, what in the world is going on? What's the deal with isolation? There's a joke that somebody was in isolation for 2 weeks and his wife killed him, right? Too much being together at home, right? His wife killed him. But being in isolation, right? Not social distancing to make sure no one infects somebody else. There's something much deeper going on, right? And everything, and their mother shut down all sporting events, Hollywood, all, what are people doing? They must be going out of their minds, right? Because the only thing you're going to hear is about this virus and where to go and what to do and how to combat it, right? So it's an unbelievable thing, when you look at it, that what does God want over here? We're going to stay clear, he's the one behind it, right? So when anything happens, right, this is the question a lot of people have difficulty with, is that why are people going to die? Why is it going to be in such great numbers? Why, let's say, by the Holocaust and the horrific way it happened, and all these different things, right? So the simple answer is we don't see the bigger picture, right? We don't understand, what's going on. But seemingly we live in a lawless world. When you live in a lawless world, that means everything goes, right? And if everything goes, then what do you have? You have chaos. Right, you have in my language we'll call it spiritual chaos, and and at some point God says, okay, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to show, that I'm in charge, and I'm running things, and I'm going to put everything on its head, right? So you're going to say, okay, what about the medical establishment? Someone told me in a certain city they have 4 ventilators in a major hospital. What would happen if 100 people come in? Who decides who gets the ventilators? Right, the old people they'll die. They're not going to live much longer anyway, so we'll let them die. We use it for younger people. They have a greater chance to survive, right? But one thing you see clear is one little microbe. Where'd the microbe come from? Right? You're going to say maybe it was biological weapons that got out. It came out from, or people come and saying it came out from snakes, or it came out from this, whatever. Wherever it came out, however it got leaked, if God didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't. But at the end of the day, things change in the medical establishment. How are you going to deal with it? What's going to go on? This and that. Again, it's overkill. But what does it show? It shows that the medical establishment does not have control, right? And this is a major thing, because they want to say, yeah, we're going to grapple, we're going to do this, we're going to, put everyone in lockdown, we're going to take care of it, but they're not in control, right? This thing can mutate, it can be more difficult, it can take months, this, that, all kinds of speculation, right? But it's a microbe, right? God put it out there. Who else put it out there? Where did it come from? Right? This is the difficulty people have. And so why should people die? Well, there's a command. Right after Adam and Eve ate from the tree, people are going to die. Whether they die young, whether they die old, whether they die in a car accident, they fall off a cliff, they get a disease. It doesn't matter. Comes the angel of death when God tells them. God directs the angel of death. Okay, take this one, take that one. What difference does it make, how the person died? You'll tell me, okay, a person died older, fine, he had a good life, whatever. But a person dies tragically, right? Dies as a young kid, gets killed in a car accident, did something else, had a disease, whatever the case is. Then we start asking the question, what in the world's going on? Because people want to believe, right? Except for the atheists or whatever. People want to believe that God is good, right? So this is the question. If God is good, what are you doing over here? Right? One thing could be, is to put the medical establishment in their place. And to show they're not in control. There was a story, I think I told the story before, it's a good story, that someone came to a doctor, his daughter had a disease, certain disease, and there's one world expert, that could help. So the person goes with his daughter, and the expert looks at, the documents, this, that, I can help you, not a problem. And it's, this religious Jew says, thank God, you'll be the right messenger, God should help. Right? The doctor says, what do you mean God? There's no God over here. I'm the one in charge. I'm the one doing that. Nothing to do with God. And, this religious Jew gets upset. Right? And he says, you take that back. That's heresy. They're going back and forth. And this Jew says, fine, I'm not taking my daughter to you. I'm not letting you operate. The doctor left. The doctor says, you're not going to let me operate? What are you, out of your mind? Your daughter's going to die. He says, you don't run the world. You're not in charge. The doctor laughed. He walked away. Doctor goes to a convention, right, speaking in front of 200 people, right, shortly thereafter, giving this major presentation. And as they say, when you got to go, you got to go. In the middle of his presentation, right, he runs out, right? Got to use the facility. So he comes back, right? After coming back, he calls this religious Jew, tells him, I want to speak to you. I want you to come to my office. Jew comes into the office. Doctor tells him, more than happy to do the operation with God's help. So the Jew looks at him, what are you talking about? What do you mean God's help? You're a heretic. How could you say with God's help? So he says, I thought I was in charge. I thought I was in control. I'm this world expert. I can certainly do this major surgery, save your daughter's life. But you know what I can't do? I can't control my own faculties. I can't control my own bowel movements. Right? That shows there's something else going on. So the point is, we're not trying to prove God's existence or anything else. That's not the idea, right? But the idea is not about panic, right? It's about that we understand God runs the world. We understand He's in charge. We don't always fathom why, right? A lot of times, even in hindsight, we don't fathom why. So if you want to tell me, according to the Medrash, good, this is the beginning and the end, this could be the Messiah, could be, right? It very well could be, or not. This could just be a prelude, right? It could be a prelude, right? And this thing, eventually, disappears. Is it going to take 500 million people with it? I don't believe it. I mean, I could be totally wrong, right? But, there's an idea also that if something like this happens, right, and it's a plague, we mentioned God has many messengers, right? But at the end of the day, it's a cleansing process. Why is it a cleansing process? Because we spoke about the end of days. By the end of days, those are going to get saved. A third are going to get destroyed, right? A third are going to get saved, and a third are going to be injured. Question if they're going to survive or not, right? But at the end of the day, if we're doing the right thing, we're getting the right messages, right? We see that God is the one who's in charge, right? But at the end of the day, it's a process. It's a process of cleansing. So the way we look at it, or the way we should, there's no difference, if someone dies at a ripe old age, or God forbid, even if someone dies tragically. That's their time to go. How they go, nobody has control. Says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, right? It says in Ethics of Our Fathers, you die against your will, you're created against your will, right? In my language, put in parentheses, but you still have to live. Right, but when you live with this and you understand, people have told me, I hear this all the time. Life is so fragile. Of course it's fragile. Nobody knows what's going to be day in and day out. But if you understand whatever God does is for the best, and if I have to be in lockdown, right, and I have to be alone, and I have to pray on my own, I mean, it's not a good thing synagogues shut down either, right? Don't we need prayer? Don't we need people learning, to get rid of this? But again, we're not going to compromise people that are compromised in this situation. So even synagogues get shut down, right? Schools going to get shut down. But what about kids learning? That's the best fence over here. But even if that gets shut down, there's also a message, right? There could be two messages. One is you do whatever it takes to get rid of this thing, and if you have to be in isolation, you shut down everything. That's one. That's one thing. But at the end of the day, what do we see? We see that the main things that keep the Jewish people together and keep them strong are shut down. Now that's never good, right? If something happens in a synagogue, God forbid, there's a fire, there's, it gets destroyed, whatever, these things are never good. There's a message. There's something going on within that's rotten to the core. It doesn't happen by chance. For God to, the only place we have to pray today, there is no temple today, right? There is no Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, what takes place? Where's the main congregation of Jews today? Synagogues, right? They pray there, they pray there, they learn there, etc. So all things being equal, these should be edifices that don't get touched. They should be such holy places, nothing should happen to them. Right? So why is it that you can have arson, you can have shooting attacks, you can have other things go on? Because it has to be, there's a message, right? And God is sending a message. Maybe he's not going to take people with him, right? Maybe people aren't going to die, maybe some will. But if it happens in a specific place, right, the message is there's something rotten in that place. Now, you'll tell me, other people who get it, even if they're younger, they didn't deserve that. They walk to the synagogue and they get shot and die, and they die. Right? You'll say, where's the rationale? Why should this be? Right? So at the end of the day, the answer is we don't know. Right? But, there's always a but, and that is that even if someone younger, let's say dies, there's something else going on with their soul. There has to be, otherwise you're going to tell me God is cruel. Right? And over here, yeah, God creates evil. But is it if God is outside of it, doesn't he control it? Doesn't he harness it if he wants to use it? Or someone else wants to use it, he allows him to tap in. But he can use anything. Right? He can use anything to tap in. He can use any, he's got plenty of ammunition. Right? But the idea is whoever's gonna live and whoever's gonna die is dependent on God's will. It's not dependent on anything else. What I do matters, that there's no question. But if there's social isolation, this is a major wake-up call, right? The fact that, okay, if you tell me it's in one place, or you tell me it's in a few places, maybe those specific places need it, right? And there's something else going on there. But if you tell me it's a pandemic, and you tell me it's all over the world, then everyone has to get the message. It's not just, we're going to make this tsunami just hit that area. We're going to make this earthquake hit that area, right? But what's the source? God obviously is the source, right? And as the Rambam says, there's an equilibrium in the world. When you have an equilibrium that's bad, right, meaning it's not equal anymore, and it goes way down on the scale of evil, well, God says, that's it. I'm gonna take charge here. How it works, when God's going to do something, nobody knows. But, we do have a precedent for this, by Titus himself, right? Titus himself, the Roman general helped destroy the temple, right? He's on a boat, and the waves are going to kill him. And Titus says, the Talmud tells us, God's not a fair fight. Fight me on land, right? Like an absolute, heretic. Fight me on land. So what happens? So the storm stops, gets to dry land. So what does God do? He sticks a mosquito up his nose, and that mosquito grows, and it grows, and it grows. And after he dies, they open up his brain, right? And they see this huge bird, right? They see this huge bird, unbelievable fangs that like chirps away at his, at his brain. The Talmud tells he goes through all kinds of suffering, because of it. But he says, yeah, God, I want you to fight me. God's like, I got so many things I could destroy you with. What does he destroy him with? A mosquito. He takes a mosquito and sticks it up his nose, right? And then it expands and destroys it. So God has his reason for doing things. He can take a microbe. He can take a fly. He could take animals. People, there's stories every year. People get mauled by animals, right? Alligators, other things. Okay, you'll tell me it's not so common, and other things. But there's all orchestration here, right? There's a whole, intricate network of all these different things being used, and God's just like, he's just like the Pied Piper over here. He's putting everything into action, which people say, well, it's not fair. You got this thing, why does God want people to suffer? He doesn't want people to suffer, right? That's the main idea. He does not want people to suffer. But if we don't get the message, right? As the rabbis tell us, if you don't get the message, a number of things have to happen to wake you up, right? Again, it'll happen outside of you, in a different place. That doesn't work. You can get hit in the pocket. If that doesn't work, you get hit in the body. Now, most people today are getting hit all over the place. Some are getting hit in the body. A lot of people get hit in the pocket. A lot of things being shut down, right? All the most meaningless things, in the world that cause a tremendous amount of spiritual damage, whether it's entertainment or sports or whatever, every last thing is shut down, right? Totally shut down. You've never seen it in the history of man, right? Only by a war, things have been stopped or slowed down. Never seen anything on such a level, right? At this point, the only question is, are we going to get the message? So the bottom line, is God sending out this virus? He's sending it out, right? There's no question. He's gonna, it's a cleansing process. People are gonna die. However many are gonna die. Is it the beginning of the end? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. What's gonna be. But He's the one calling the shots, right? So it's hard to fathom, and to see. There was just a story I heard of a great rabbi in England, 71 years old, contracted it and died. Right. So, I don't know if he had any, outstanding, health issues or, anything else. This is not non-discriminate over here. Right. It's taking whoever it needs to take. Right. Which is a major issue. It's a major Jewish philosophical concept that God is going to do exactly what He wants. He's going to bring these things out, and it's for us to learn. Right, and if God forbid innocent people die, and there's no such thing as innocent, but when we see tragedy, when we see these things, then that's it. It's a wake up call, right? But when you see the whole world shut down, you cannot say well, this is a chance happening. This never happened. Okay, you had the bubonic plague wiped out half of Europe. You have the Spanish flu in 1918. Fine. Right, but you're not talking the entire world. The world was much smaller then. It was much bigger then. Today, everyone knows everything about everything, in a split second. So the fact that, this has gone all over, and it's non-discriminatory, in every place in the world. Right? Okay, some places are doing it better and stopping it more, some less, whatever, whatever it is. But this has happened before. You had other viruses, some much more severe. They killed tens of millions of people. Again, why is that? For whatever reason, God does not want these people in the world, right? He is going to destroy them by using a virus. Now, God can do it any other way. He could use a tsunami, he could use other things, right? It just, the problem over here is the sheer panic, right? Which no one says, there's going to be no food, right? Or no toilet paper. Well, I don't think toilet paper is made in Japan and in China, right? I don't think that's going to be an issue. We're going to run out of that, right? But in general, the way people look at it and the way they deal with it, that's really the point. And when you look at a God-run world, even though God's ways are hidden, right? So that's where the questions come up, and that's where you see over here. Right, you see this thing, and it's tragic. It's causing people their livelihood. People can't move. You can't go anywhere. Kids are home. They're out of school. You're trying to clean for Passover. It's an absolute disaster, right? In a lot of different ways. You want to destroy a family? Keep everyone together. Keep everyone inside. That'll do it. Why? What else are you going to do? Right? Obviously, you don't want it to spread. But again, we have to be able to see. We have to be able to see the way the world is, right? And the way the world works according to what the Torah says, right? And the Torah is going to tell us clear that God is in charge. There's nothing outside of Him. God is absolute. First of the 13 principles of Maimonides, right? God doesn't change. He's not fickle. That means there's no source outside of Him. So if there's no source outside of Him and you have an issue, right, that's the one you go to. It's not like, oh, my life, you forget the virus, person has difficulty in livelihood or with his spouse or his kids or whatever. You say, and a person says, okay, what's going on, right? So we have to take responsibility for what we do, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of the things come straight, we do it to ourselves. And God brings plenty of things on us as well, because that makes for a lot of difficulty, right? There's a lot of sickness, there's a lot of, difficult things going on in the world, and a lot of people are suffering, right? So if you're going to tell me it comes directly from God, right, they're going to say, well, I thought God is good. God is good, right? We'll see a silver lining somewhere, somewhere over this, right? And if it would be, the bringing, the beginning of the bringing of the Messiah and other things happen, people say, now I understand. Now it's much clearer. That's, obviously if they survive, right? But if let's say it ends, I don't know, people are saying it's going to end, it's going to take 6 months or whatever, right? To finally be rid of this thing, etc. So, what are people going to say? People are going to say, let's get back to sports. Let's get back to entertainment. Let's get back to the real world, right? By 9/11, what did Mayor Rudy Giuliani say? He said after 9/11, we can't let this stop us. We're going to keep going forward, right? Tomorrow's another day. But what did you learn from the message? What did you get from the message? 2 main towers totally destroyed, thousands of people killed, right, on your own home soil. You didn't see it coming. And all that. You're going to go back to normal? How could you ever go back to normal? Right? If God does a miracle, if God shows us things, and shows his awesomeness in the world, and we don't get the message, then we're going to get it 10 times worse. If a person admits something happened by a miracle, right? Many people said during the war with Hamas a few years ago, with all the Scud missiles or whatever, and they're only 5 kilometers, a few miles, right, from some of these towns that border on Gaza, and a lot of these missiles hit, into empty areas and didn't kill people directly and all that. Either you got the stupidest person shooting them, and these missiles are extremely accurate, so that can't be, right? And people were saying it's an absolute miracle how, what was going on, right? The problem is, if you say it's a miracle, and you recognize it as a miracle, it has to affect you. If it doesn't affect you, you go back to being the same person that you were, right, then God wasted it. Because the whole purpose is, if we're going to see God in this world, it's very hard to do that, right? Because, God's ways are totally hidden, as we mentioned. And Amalek is going to tell you, and all the people will say, there is no God in this world. There is no supernatural, right? You got to fight. You got to look. You got to be able to see, right? It's very easy to prove that. But the point is that we cannot be the same. Even a person got it and he survived and all that and whatever, you cannot be the same person. You have to realize, where it's coming from. We have to get the message. Because if we don't get the message, couldn't it be worse? Couldn't this continue? Be much worse? Could be much worse. Could be like the SARS virus, could disappear.
Hey, Rabbi.
Right? It can also, yeah.
Let me hang up and call you right back, so the internet's getting garbled on the Skype through, and I'll call you right back, okay?
Okay.
Just sit tight. All right, it happens sometimes. We just got to refresh. So let's recall him back again. See if this reconnection makes it come through a little easier, a little better.
Yeah, we better?
I'll tell you in just a moment. Yep, definitely better. So, okay, go ahead. Continue on.
Okay. No, the point is that if God does all these miracles, and we recognize it as a miracle. So what's God going to do? If we don't recognize it as a miracle, how in the world, what should God think? What is God going to think? He said, I wasted my time. What would have happened if God did all these miracles for the Jewish people and they say, no, we're not going to the desert. We're not interested in the Torah. We're not interested in what you have to offer. Why would he have done the miracle? He would have found another nation to do it. Obviously, God knew they were going to take on the Torah. They were going to say, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear, right? So that's clear. But if we don't get the message, right? That's the idea. But how you can say this is just a chance thing, and in other things as well. It's just a chance thing. You get meteorologists will tell you how a tornado forms, what happens with tsunami, and in these different things. Some are more complicated, less complicated, whatever, right? But God is nature, right? The same numerical value, right? For the name Elohim and nature, right? God is nature, so he's the one either making things, destroying things. It's not like, wow, he created the world and he disappeared, right? So he's in charge. He's the one dictating traffic. He's using all these different things. So it could be a virus, it could be a fire, it could be, car accidents, it could be, the price of oil going up, it could be any number of things that he wants people to get a message. Well, the problem is a lot of us don't get the message, right? And therefore we're first, we'll be the first ones, maybe to thank God when things are good. When things are bad, right, he should also get the blame. In theory, we're judged for what we do, right? But there are things that are out of our control. Many things that are out of our control. So if they're out of our control, what can I do? The question is, how are you going to react? So God puts all these things, all these obstacles in our way to see how we're going to deal with it, how we're going to react, how it's going to build us, destroy us, whatever the case is. But make no mistake, as we mentioned at the beginning, every missile has its point, right? It's going to hit whoever deserves to be hit. There's nothing random. Right, that's why there's a mitzvah the Shabbos before Purim. There's a mitzvah to read the verses about Amalek, to wipe him out. Now, if we knew who Amalek was today, there'd be a mitzvah to kill him, right? If he could get away with it. But we don't know who Amalek is today. Sancheriv mixed up all the nations. So if he mixed up all the nations, we don't know who he is. How can we do the mitzvah? How can we possibly wipe him out? The only way to wipe him out are to do mitzvahs, to keep Torah, and to go in the way that God wants by understanding he's in charge. Even if life is hard and life is difficult, he's the one calling the shots. He's the ones we mentioned, he's directing traffic. We got any complaints, they go straight to him. Right? That 100%, is the issue. Is there a bigger thing going on? Certainly could be. Right? Certainly could be. The thing could die out also, could be nothing. I mean, not going to say nothing, but, however many people are going to die, however many, it's going to happen to, okay, right? Not saying it's a great thing, certainly not a good thing by any stretch, but he has a purpose for doing it. And, that is probably one of the, the most difficult things, for people to deal with, is the fact that, well, God wants to give his goodness. So why do you have all these things? But you got to be blind not to see. It'd be one thing you say, well, I'm not really affected by it because I don't live in that area. All these wars in Africa, whatever, and famine. Well, it doesn't really affect me, right? I'm not, I don't live there. I don't have any relatives there. It doesn't really, affect me in any way. In a global way, or even in a personal way. But if something hits you or hits a family member, whatever, obviously you're much more affected. But if this thing hits everybody, right, they're talking about, tens of millions being infected with this thing all over the world, and it's not just in one area. There's something else going on, right? Normally things are in a certain place, right? Because that place has to get judged and that place has to get whacked around. Right, so therefore God's going to do it, here, there, or any other place. Fine, but if it's somewhere, if it's everywhere, if it's all over the world, if it's all over the world, then you definitely need to wake up and to see that it's for us, and it's for us to learn from, all these different things. And being alone with ourselves, not necessarily a bad thing, right? We have to take stock of who we are, what we do, and and where we want to go, and what our purpose in life is. That's for sure. So when we see anything like this, yeah, it has God's footprints all over it. The question is, okay, where's it going to go? Right? What's the end purpose? The end purpose, I can assure you, is not to go back to normal life. Right? We want to go back to learning. We want to go back to having our schools open. Yeah. Right? We want to go back to serving God the way we need to. And when you're in quarantine, you can't do that. So you can't do it as well. Right? There's no question. Especially the timing. because, right, Passover is the month, the month of Nisan is the month of Gula, it's the month of redemption. So, we think about redemption, there's the fifth cup. There are 4 cups that we drink of wine or grape juice. There's the fifth cup. What's the fifth cup? Fifth cup is Elijah the prophet, right? So why do we mention about Elijah the prophet? Because the 4 cups are talking about the redemption from Egypt, right? Physical redemption, spiritual redemption. But then we're talking about the ultimate redemption. The ultimate redemption, the prophets tell us that Elijah is going to come, be the harbinger of the Messiah. So when he comes back, reveals himself, etc., so we know the Messiah is here. So that being the case, so there's past redemption, there's future redemption. Is it a coincidence that all this is happening now, a few weeks before Passover? I don't think it's a coincidence. Certainly not. Is it going to lead to the ultimate redemption? Jury's out. Jury's out on that. It could not. Right? Have to see, which way it goes. But bottom line, we have to take stock. We have to take stock of what we do, and therefore, it has to affect us, not just because we're inconvenienced, not just because we're limited, in movements. We have to take stock of what we're doing here, what our purpose in life is, where we want to go, how we want to change, who the people we want to become. That's what we want to do. Nobody wants to be forced to do that, right? That's the ultimate irony, right? You have an obligation, a Jew has an obligation, to take this stock of themselves every day, right? Every night before they go to sleep. Think about what they did during the day, who they spoke to, what blessings they made, how they did things, whatever. But now you have no choice. You're forced into a situation to be by yourself or with your family, whatever. You're being in isolation. Now, being in isolation, people kill themselves because they don't want to be alone with themselves, right? But for a Jew or even for a Noahide, right? The purpose of life is drawing close to God and doing what we need to do at whatever level. So at every step that we make, we're always taking stock. We're always thinking about what we're doing, right? That's what we need to do. The rest of the world, they're doing, they're just caught up in fantasy and everything else. Nobody really cares. They just, they want Hollywood back on. They want sports back on, driving people batty, right? But they miss the whole point. To be alone is to understand, what my purpose in life is. And again, God forbid you don't get the message, then the message can come back, and hit, 10 times more. That's the message. And yes, the simple answer to the question is God in control? Is he sending this out? Yes. When's he going to stop it? It's a very good question. When's the world going to go back to normal, quote unquote? Also, also a very good question, right? But make no mistake, he's the one, pushing the buttons and directing traffic.
Right on. Cool. All right. Well, very good. That's about all. So basically, what you're saying is you could have summed this video up in about 2 seconds.
That's what someone's going to say on the blog, right? They're going to say, why do you waste all this time? You could have told me in 3 seconds.
48-minute video on a 2-second answer. Hey, that's okay, though.
Yeah, right.
The extra information is necessary, though, in my opinion. So I think everybody else would probably agree. Okay, well, cool. So I've got a few ideas for future topics. If you guys have any ideas also of some good future topics for controversial issues, please send Rabbi an email. You can send it to me. I'm not sure how soon I'll see it. But so what is the best email they can reach you at?
Rabbi Chaim Coffman at gmail.com.
That's tough.
RABBI CHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com.
And you could try it alternately. You can send it to Tanakh Talk Questions at Gmail, and I'll try to track it there. So, okay, well.
Or you can send Facebook. You can send me a text on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. I'll get it there also.
Well, there you go. And website I put up earlier is orthodoxconversion.com. So if you guys are interested. So.
Right.
All right. Well, you guys have a good one, and we'll see you guys in a little while. I've got one more show coming up. Sit tight. See you soon.
השאיפה והכמיהה.
אני אתה אתם תמיד תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה.
חושבים דוברים לובשים בכל האופנים, זה טבעם של אנשים שונים.
נזכור בסוף כולנו שותפים,
חשוב תמיד להיות אנושיים. חושבים דוברים לובשים בכל האופנים, זה טבעם של אנשים שונים.
Have you been questioning what is actually written in your New Testament? Are you tired of getting the same old responses when you ask your pastor or preacher questions about things that just don't add up? If you're like me, the most popular answers I always get are, sometimes you just have to have faith, or some things just can't be explained. Well, I'm here to tell you that everything can be explained. Here are 4 good resources that will help you get a better understanding of what the Hebrew Scriptures, also known as the Old Testament, actually teaches, and why it is that the New Testament just does not seem to match.
Revealing Matthew's Secrets by Jason LaCrosse. Leaving Jesus by James Wood Jr. Judaism and Christianity, A Contrast by Rabbi Stuart Federow. Let's Get Biblical 2-volume book set by Rabbi Tovia Singer.
If you or anyone you know would benefit from these resources, please share this video link with your friends and family and help spread the one true light.
This advertisement has been sponsored by an anonymous donor. All these resources can be found in links below the video.
Te